Good morning again. Center Agriculture back in business. We're going to spend some time with the NEK group, representatives of the North Sea Kingdom. We have Jen Carlo, who's going to kind of direct how this testifying go, and she's going to make a statement before we start. Good morning, Jen. The floor is yours.
Good morning, Senator Ingalls, members of the committee, and Linda. Thank you so much for having us here this morning. This is our 7th annual NEK Day at the State House, or Thursday will be, and we're so grateful to the committee for making some time to talk with a few witnesses about different agriculture and related projects around the NEK. We will be bringing a larger group to the State House on Thursday, and we hope to see some of you. The purpose of NEK Day is really just to raise awareness about all of the wonderful and unique aspects of the Northeast Kingdom, which is comprised of Caledonia, Essex, and Orleans County, as you know, and also to
I'll just have you, I apologize, I'll just have you officially introduce yourself. I know I did, but just because we don't have you on the agenda, just tell us who you are and your title of what you're doing.
No problem. My name is Jen Carlo, and I'm the Executive Director of the NEK Collaborative.
Thank you.
And with that and what I previously said, we'll proceed with our witnesses today. First up is Mark Rogers. Mark is the owner of MKVT Farm in Glover and is also the newly installed president of the Vermont Sheep and Goat Association.
Good morning, Mark. How are you?
I'm okay, Russ. Good morning, Chairman Ingalls and members of the Senate Ag Committee. And I'm going to start off by apologizing. I had detached retina last week and had surgery, so I'm sitting here with my right eye closed. I'm not winking at you, Russ, but I'm having a little trouble seeing here, but I'll do my best. And as Jen said, my name's Mark Rogers. I live and farm in Glover with my wife Karen at MKVT Farm. I am a retired dairy farmer and was Vermont dairy farmer way back in 1996. Outstanding young Holstein breeder in the United States in 1999. And last year I was actually named Vermont's Fantastic Farmer. So I've traveled a lot of miles, been involved in a lot of national organizations, done a lot of things, but I've been glad to call the Northeast Kingdom home for most of my life. For the past 10 years, Karen and I have raised lambs, pigs, chickens, turkeys, rabbits, and beef for over 100 customers throughout New England for our farm-to-table business. And as Jen said, I am president of the Vermont Sheep and Goat Association. I'm a director of the American Sheep Industry Association. And many of you may be aware that I imported the very first Dutch spotted sheep into North America last year. And this was part of my effort to create agricultural opportunities in Vermont to grow and strengthen the ag economy. And as a retired dairy farmer and former Agrimark board member, I understand the significant role that the dairy industry has played in Vermont. I also understand why it's declining, as the decline of the bovine sector of the dairy industry will continue. However, I do want to point out that the goat and sheep dairy industry is growing and has some strength to it. And this is an opportunity to backfill some of the small farms and homesteads vacated by dairy cattle. And I believe that small ruminants for dairy and also for meat and or fiber will continue to provide a solution to keep Vermont fields open and economically viable. Small ruminants will help us meet Vermont goals for food production, while the grazing of small ruminants will provide environmental sustainability and improve carbon sequestration. So some environmental benefits there too. Another thing I do in my spare time, I'm a contract auditor for A Greener World, and that's a international standards organization certified certifier. And I'm a certified animal welfare officer and poultry welfare officer. I perform audits for animal welfare and regenerative certifications in the United States and Canada. So I've got a better understanding of these issues than most. And what I want to point out is we talk about the production of food and doing things. We can't lose sight of the well-being of all animals, poultry, the economic sustainability of our farmers, and the environmental consequences of our farming practices. Uh, some of the challenges that we face here and other farmers face as a small farmer is access to processors for our meat, for wool, for fiber, for skins to create more value. And for instance, Northeast Kingdom Processing here in Lyndonville is processes tons and tons of meat for everybody in the Northeast. And they made an announcement earlier this year that they're not going to process any lambs in October and November. My local processor here, Phil Brown and Glover, won't process any lambs at all. And part of the claim is that they can't afford to run them through their facility and be able to afford to pay their help. And as of right now, it's still costing me $175 to process a lamb. And when the total value of the lamb is under $500, that's a lot. We have to send our hides out of state to have them processed. There is a processor in Manchester, Vermont, Vermont Natural Tannery, but they only do 6 hides a day. So we've got some roadblocks in front of us, and wool has little value, but the Vermont Sheep and Goat Association and others are trying to work to do some of those things.
So where is the growth, Mark? Where is the good growth? Because we're hearing, well, there's not enough goat milk or whatever. Talk about where the growth is in that segment.
Well, so not everybody is cut out to be a sheep or goat farmer. The trouble with sheep and goats are they're cute, and a lot of people think that they can grab hold of some cute animals and make a legitimate business. I mean, so I want to start right from the beginning to say not everybody, one, should be a farmer, and not everybody's going to be a good farmer. But what we've seen is really the transition from bovine dairy to goat and or sheep dairy. Dairymen make good dairymen for the most part. A good dairyman can dairy with any animals. And that's why I say that some of this growth or some of the backfilling of these small dairies, because typically, a small dairy that milked 50 to 100 cows can handle, 200 to 500 goats, say, which I think is economically viable. And there is a market for the milk, whether people want to just sell it wholesale to Vermont Creamery, or there's a number of artisan producers in the state as well. It's a little different for sheep milk. There's a big demand for sheep milk. I think Anson Tebbetts will tell you, because he keeps getting after me trying to get some of the Amish up here to put in some sheep milk dairies. There is a growing need for that. And David Major down in the southern part of the state has been extremely successful with what's the oldest sheep milk dairy in the country. So Vermont has some unique opportunity to slide some small ruminant production into areas that have been vacated by cow dairies that have gone out of business.
I'm going to, Mark, hold some of your thoughts. I'm going to get some other people on the screen here because we only had the 30 minutes for you today, and I give everybody a fair shot. But just before you go, it's rumored that you know somebody in the State House.
Yes, and I want everybody to know that the Lieutenant Governor is my little brother. I do not look like him. I'm older. I looked like this first, and he looks like me. So
good. Thank you, Mark. Well, if you have some time, we'll get back to you. Jen, who do you have next?
Thank you. We're going to go with Matt Linehan next. Matt is on Sparrow Ark Farm, and will talk to us a little bit about that.
Good morning, Mark. The floor is yours.
Good morning. I'm Matt Linehan.
Matt, I said Matt. I'm sorry. Apologize.
It's all right. It's all right. I own and operate Sparrow Ark Farm in the Northeast Kingdom Potato Company in Guildhall, Vermont, and represent Vermont as our state rep to Potatoes USA, which is the USDA appointed marketing board for potatoes in the United States. I'm here to speak in favor about the proposed Vermont Farm Emergency Fund. We've been flooded out. We farm on the Connecticut River, um, and have been flooded out the past 2 Julys in a row, 2023 and 2024. We lost about 20% of our crop in 2023 and 36% of our crop in um, 2024 to the summer flooding. It's not a spot we're going to be in again. 2 years in a row makes a trend for me, and we're not planting anything on the floodplain anymore, aside from pumpkins. We grow 55 acres of potatoes annually. So although it is not a spot I necessarily foresee for us being in a pinch again, um, I think that given the events of the last couple of years, doing something um, with more prior planning and more robustly than say the B gap, which was useful and great, would be a very, very good thing. Because I recognize that like we're in a unique spot in that like we farm the valley land, but we can move off of it. Like we just switched our rotation from 4 years to three, and we don't need to put such a high value crop down low anymore. But not everybody is in that same position. And when you look at like the August flooding in St. Johnsbury, Caledonia County this year, you know, Kirby, Wheelock, St. Jay, I mean, 8 inches of rain overnight and what that did to the roads. I mean, we need, I think it would serve Vermont well to have a plan to deal with these catastrophic events for the future.
So we walked through that bill this morning. We're gonna have it talk about 2 more times this week. We'll be working on that. Tell us about what you did get for help to help get you through.
Well, I mean, the numbers for 2023, I honestly don't remember. I'm calling you from the truck. We're delivering potatoes today. But 2024 B Gap got us $50,000 against $180,000 loss. So $50,000 is not nothing. It was well appreciated. But you know, still lost 130 grand, and we're not a particularly big farm. So um, you know, we just we're going to get through it. All right. We're not going out of business. We stayed out of the terminal this year and tried to move the average price of our product up, and hustled like hell. And, I think we'll make it. But,
Where is your market?
we sell all over New England and into the Hudson Valley in New York. So, I mean, our biggest single customer is the Vermont Food Bank. They're tremendous partners, but we sell to Black River Produce in Springfield, Vermont. Them and the food bank would make our two largest in-state customers, along with Performance Food Group out of Burlington, Vermont. And then we sell an awful lot of product in Eastern Massachusetts, Boston area restaurants, Boston area farms, and to the terminal market in Chelsea, Mass. Which is repack. So like from when we sell to the terminal, our potatoes are packed in house brand bags and go all over the eastern seaboard.
And in a very competitive business of potatoes, you walk through any store and there's a lot of potatoes there. What separates you? What gets yours to market and gets yours sold over others?
Well, we're fairly low spray, but I mean, honestly, if you see our bags in the store near you, it's quite obvious that we are Vermont grown. We push the Vermont grown thing really hard. I mean, hence our brand name, Northeast Kingdom Potato Company. Paper bags, got a view of the mountains, Vermont grown all over it. That's how we push the product, and it's really worked very well for us. I mean, yeah, you can find our products at most of the co-ops in the state and all the whites markets in the kingdom. Yeah, check us out next time you're at the grocery store. If you see Vermont potatoes, they're us.
So Matt, I'm gonna jump in here if I could. You mentioned you do about 55, 60 acres of potatoes, but you're not gonna plant on the floodplain anymore. You have other acres that you could devote to that. And what are you gonna do on the floodplain, like a cover crop or just let it go?
No, our lowland will plant pumpkins, dry corn, and sublet to the dairy farm that we rotate with.
Okay. And
You
you
know?
have other land that you move your potato planting to?
Yeah, there's like in our part of the Connecticut River Valley, there's like, let's say, 2 layers of floodplain. There's the village level, and then there's, the true floodplain, which, the true floodplain typically goes underwater every spring, and that's totally normal. It's only been in an exceptional years every 10 to 15 years that it would summer flood. So we farm the old Peasley potato farm in Guildhall. Which was a potato farm for 100 years, huge brand name. Bert Peasley was very active in state politics. Janice Peasley was a rep for a long time. So since 1990, aside from 2023 and 2024, the summer flooding had only hit the kingdom during Irene. That was the only year, So, I mean, generally speaking, knowing summer flooding was possible, we've only ever planted 25% of our crop down low, thinking that would be enough. Because, once every 10 years, losing 25% of the crop, that's like kind of no problem. I mean, this is farming. You expect to eat your shirt sometimes. But 2 years in a row, I mean, you can't suffer those kind of losses,
Okay,
It seems the new normal.
Yep, thank you.
Matt, we're gonna get through here. Thank you. We'll
Thank
see
you.
what we end up for time. We're gonna move on. Jen, who's next?
Thank you. And next up, we have Abby Long from the Kingdom Trail Association and Molly Willard from Vermont Forest Parks and Rec to talk about the Forest Future Strategic Roadmap.
Good morning, favorite committee. Thank you all for welcoming me back. Twice in 1 week, that's a treat for us. As you know from last week, my name is Abby Long. I'm the executive director for the Kingdom Trail Association. I live up in Burke, which is up in the Northeast Kingdom, which is what we're celebrating today. I will, of course, can't go a minute without talking about trails, but we're really going to be focusing on our forests, which, as Russ, that working landscape, which outdoor recreation is a part of, is vital to our Northeast Kingdom region. But before we dive in, I'd love Molly, if you'd like to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi, good morning, everyone. I'm Molly Willard. I grew up and live in the Northeast Kingdom, and I'm joining you here today from Forest Parks and Recreation, where I worked with Abby on the development of the Forest Future Strategic Roadmap and many others. And I work within the Forest Economy Program as the Wood Energy and Forest Products Specialist.
Thank you, Molly. So it was actually, I'm going to bring you back to 2022, and it was actually you all, the legislator, that called in H-183 for Vermont's Department of Forest Parks and Rec to produce a strategic plan, a roadmap for the next 10 years for the state. And so the goal of this Vermont Futures Forest Strategic Roadmap was to first look at the current state of Vermont's forest product sector and the greater forest economy, and then identify the opportunities to strengthen and modernize and promote and protect the long-term viability of our forests. And in order to do that, an advisory panel was created, which I was so proud to serve as the outdoor recreation voice on that panel. There were about 20 members, anywhere from conservationists to private landowners to truckers to loggers to sawmill owners, and they were just a range of perspectives and voices that really were understanding that there are other forest uses and users. And I want to stress that community engagement was at the core of this process. There was a listening tour, there were surveys, and the Vermont Department of Forest Parks and Rec really did a phenomenal job at listening and learning, and then taking everything, compiling it, and putting it into action. And to achieve these goals, there were 5 main pillars that were identified. And that's where Molly is going to really hone in and share a bit more.
Yeah, sure. And I'll try and be more brief than we have in the past, given what we have for time here. So yeah, there's 5 pillars, and we're really working at looking at how to support the greater forest economy in Vermont. And this is really important for the Northeast Kingdom. So, the Northeast Kingdom has a long history of forest management that really started in the late 1800s and early 1900s, as they were sort of the whole log drives down the Connecticut River. And it really remains, having grown up here, living here, it really remains the backbone of the communities in this region. It's a huge part of related to people's jobs in the area, our clean water, fresh air, supporting industry, tourism, and providing recreation. So we can quickly talk about each pillar and how it sort of supports the Northeast Kingdom. If we look at pillar 1, our goal here through the roadmap is to have support forest management and land use. The Northeast Kingdom has large tracts of working forest land, both public and private. Some of these huge chunks were happened back in 1998 when Champion International sold 132,000 acres. And within that 132,000 acres, 22,000 acres became part of the West Mountain Management Area, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Silly-O-Connie National Wildlife Refuge, and then the Essex Timber Company, which is now owned by Weyerhaeuser. And then the Northeast Kingdom is also home to Willoughby State Forest, Groton State Forest, and many state parks. So with these huge, large tracts of land, along with a lot of it being privately owned, it's really important to have support around forest management and land use in this area. The UVA program is important in supporting private landowners in the Northeast Kingdom to help keep forests forested and remaining working. And then also, when you look at the Northeast Kingdom, it's really positioned in a place and given these large tracts of land that supports wildlife corridors that help wildlife run the backbone north to south in Vermont that connects to Canada, New Hampshire, and Maine. If we look at pillar 2, which is business environment and conditions, this pillar aims to strengthen the industry's ability to adapt to change and to guide government in finding creative solutions. The Northeast Kingdom is pretty isolated and low population density. It also has a high poverty rate, which is about 13.5%, and that's above the Vermont average, which is at 9.7%. It's also been identified as a USDA REAP zone. And with that, when we're thinking about all of that with the Northeast Kingdom, and it being 80% forested, you realize that those forests and forest products industry can benefit from innovation and adaptation for future sustainability is important. Many of the people in the Northeast Kingdom are relying on the forest for their livelihood, whether that be directly as foresters, loggers, or people running service businesses that rely on tourism through hunting, fishing, skiing, snowmobiling, etc. If we look at pillar 3, which is research, innovation, and technology, this pillar aims to boost the pace of innovation and to seize new opportunities as they emerge. We see this being really important for certain businesses moving forward in the Northeast Kingdom, and we can look at a couple of them real quickly. We have EHB Weidman in St. Johnsbury, Vermont. They currently employ 300 people, and they have a plan to expand that will bring 67 additional jobs. And this is based on them using cellulose for manufacturing and insulating materials. And so basically they're making insulation board made of wood pulp and water. And then we can look at Ethan Allen Furniture up in Beecher Falls, Vermont. They employ hundreds of people and have a facility there in the Northeast Kingdom. They have a combined heat and power system that saves money on electricity. So they use chips from managed forest lands to heat the facility and then use steam to power a turbine to provide electricity, lowering the company's power costs. Also close to the Northeast Kingdom is Reigate Power Plant, which provides 26 direct jobs and supports hundreds of loggers, foresters, and truckers in the Northeast Kingdom. So, when we're thinking about supporting the roadmap, research, innovation, and technology, we can really see where that then supports businesses in this area that are going to support the communities in the Northeast Kingdom. Pillar 4, industry reputation and market profile. This pillar really focuses on building support and appreciation for Vermont forest products in the forest economy. And so one of the things with this is that the working forests are really important for this area. And the more that we can tell the story and support forest product management and manufacturing, the more we will be supporting the region of the Northeast Kingdom. A few ways that we are doing this and continue to do this to tell the story is we can continue to invest and expand on programs such as Project Learning Tree, programs that really support teaching our youth about the importance of our forest landscape. And then we also, wood remains an important energy and heating source in Vermont. So the 2022 Vermont's Comprehensive Energy Plan adopted a goal of meeting at least 35% of Vermont's thermal demand with wood by 2030. So this is just one market that also really supports the forest products industry while providing Vermonters with renewable thermal heat. So in general, with the roadmap, the more ways that we can celebrate our state's forest management practices for renewable forest products, the more we support rural communities in Vermont that rely on the forest, like the Northeast Kingdom. And then Abby, I think you were going to jump in on Pillar 5.
Yeah. Thanks, Molly. Just to, summarize, Pillar 5, forest economy in Vermont communities, really speaks to the community development, which is one of the missions of the NEK Collaborative, and where outdoor recreation gets to shine. So this Pillar 5, really provides a vision for how towns, our rural towns, can maintain a strong forest culture, protecting and enriching the many ways our forests contribute to our economy, and plus, importantly, our well-being, which is where outdoor recreation becomes part of that new working landscape. We all know Vermonters and visitors value our forests for their environmental, their cultural, and economic benefits. I'll bring you back in time a little bit to sawmills. They were some of the earliest economic engines in many of our Vermont's rural towns, and which continue to benefit from the forest economy that grew up around them. We all know many of our sawmills have closed in recent years. However, I want to point to a shining example in East Burke, Vermont. Sawmills such as Mike's Tiki Bar in downtown East Burke. It serves as Kingdom Trail's main parking lot, trailhead, hosts multiple food trucks, has live music sometimes. It's a place to grab a beverage after a mountain bike ride. This is all happening with an active sawmill out back behind the Tiki Bar.
Abby, I'm sorry. The committee is just asking that we wrap up because it's 11 o'clock. So sorry to cut you off.
Okay. So I guess just the final sentence, Kingdom Trails is a true example of where recreation provides that renewed economic vitality and operates in a complementary manner to the forest products sector. So I'll leave it at that. I can email my testimony to share a little bit more. But thank you all again for another opportunity.
Well, we want to thank you folks. We want to thank you all coming in. Always glad to have the NEK in here. And as not only am I very supportive, I'm also a member. So thank you very much. Appreciate everything you do. And I'm sure we'll see you again before the session ends. And I want to thank everybody for coming.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, committee, we're gonna move on to the next folks here. Are they ready, Linda?
There are quite a few of them online.
Okay,
Beth
so
Kennett, Bill Emmons.
we're gonna talk to the Connecticut River Watershed Farmer Alliance. And
If Beth and will turn your microphones and video on, please.
welcome. How are you folks today?
We're doing well, thank you. And you?
Sorry, we ran a few minutes over on that last the last witnesses. Whenever you're ready, whoever wants to start off, just let us know. Or if you need a few minutes.
I believe our executive director, Mike Snow, is going to be the start.
He's not joined us yet.
Okay.
So this is Beth Kennett. I'm here, but my computer says that the host has to allow my video. So I'm here and happy to.
There it goes.
There you go. Okay, thanks so much, Linda. Great. So thank you very much for setting aside time to talk with us. Yes, we have planned on Mike as our executive director being the first one to speak, and then Paul Doughton, our chair, and then Bill Emmons is our vice chair. And then I'm supposed to speak after that. So
Yeah, if you want a couple minutes, we can wait a couple minutes, whatever you guys would like to do.
Well, I don't hate to waste time. I don't mind starting. I'm the vice chair. I think what our plan was, my name is Bill Emmons, and I'm zooming in from down near Woodstock, Vermont, and in the small town of Pomfret. I think our plan was to introduce the association itself as what we do, our mission and that sort of thing, with Mike Snow, our new executive director. And then we were going to take it upon ourselves as individual farmer members, board members, to introduce ourselves and what we do in our farm. So I'll just start with a quick howdy do, and thank you very much. I have a farm called Cloudland Farm, which has been in my family since 1908. It's been run for my family for many, many years. My father was an attorney, and before that, my grandfather was a Bostonian and a rancher in Wyoming. So there's been agriculture in the family for quite some time. I grew up on this farm and going to a one-room schoolhouse down the road all the way through boarding schools later on in life and college. So the draw to stay back here in Vermont on this farm was huge. So I landed back here much when I was fairly young in my late 20s and took over the farm. And so I've been involved with a lot of different agricultural organizations, presidents and vice presidents and chairs and stuff and thing for Vermont beef producers, VBIC, Beef Industry Council, Vermont Angus, New England Angus, on and on. So I've been involved, and I just wanted to point out that is one thing that Vermont farmers do. We are involved, and we just like to join. We like to be a part and to be part of what's going on in our communities, what's going on in our state and in the nation. So at this point, we are really happy to extend our hand in friendship here to say, look, we want you to understand what we're doing and what our concerns are, and likewise what you're doing for us. We need you to understand the predicaments, the ups and downs of farming, and the value of farming to our state, which is undoubtedly a legacy. The very first pioneers that moved here, the proprietors or the lot owners that came into this town or in this state, were farmers. And this state has been governed and run by farmers ever since. Most recently, though, state legislators come from various backgrounds, but originally they were mostly farmers. And they knew exactly what to do and how to get it done. And that's what the nature of farming is all about. We're doers. We solve problems and we don't complain. So in the given world that we're in now, there's a lot of things that we all are suffering from. Basically, there's an anxiety out there. I can see it. I liken it to a rural decay, where I see farms that are going to run down because they're one breakdown, one tractor breakdown, one injector fouling away from practically disaster or bankruptcy. And it's a tough road to hoe, as they say, with the costs of everything going up, the healthcare, on and on and on. So what we want to do here as a watershed alliance, which I'd like to mention also includes New Hampshire. This is a watershed-led organization. And to me, I've been in the planning world for a long time. I've chaired the Two Rivers Regional Planning Commission for God knows how long, over 20, 25 years. And a local one too, the Pomfret Planning Commission. So I understand planning and all of the above. And Peter Gregory's a friend, and he probably been in front of you before. So he's the executive director there. So I just want you to know that watershed is a life in its own. The watersheds are places where planning should take place alone. So everybody in those watersheds there are no lines or divisions that man has put in. Those are natural lines. So Vermont and New Hampshire have gotten together now and decided, look, we've got to address water quality, and everybody wants to address water quality. We don't have a huge problem on this side of the state, but it is a large area. So we are working toward getting more members, and we want your help. We want you to understand what we're up to, and so let's try to stay in touch. I'm trying to get people to understand how they can connect with you and understand what's going on up there, so that they can leave a phone message, a text, or what have you, to voice their concerns. Farmers are kind of busy, and it's hard to get them to even come to our board meetings. So we're trying to make it easier. So I'm going to leave it at that, but I just really appreciate everything that you're doing on behalf of all farmers. We represent everyone. We represent bees, beekeepers, horses, all aspects of agriculture. So it's not just a dairy operation here or a beef. We're everybody, and we're trying to get them all on board. And it's going to be a little bit of time to do it, but we're working on it. And I'm going to let Beth take over now, and she's a great spokesperson for the dairy and the industry where bringing tourism into the Vermont. So I'm going to turn it over to Beth.
Thanks,
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you.
So, Senators, we thank you so much for allowing us to come in and speak to you. I really appreciate your time this morning. I'm Beth Kennett. I have Liberty Hill Farm in Rochester, Vermont, and my husband Bob and son David have Robeth Holsteins, and it's a registered Holstein herd. We ship to Agrimark Cabot, and we milk about 100 cows, and we've been here since 1979. We feel very blessed that our son David is working with us to take over the farm and keep it all going. And our farm has been hosting guests here, providing lodging and meals since 1984. So 41 years of having thousands of people come and stay with us to learn what dairy farming and agriculture in Vermont is all about. I mean, they love going into the Green Mountain National Forest. They love hiking the fields. They love seeing the authentic parts of Vermont. They come to Vermont not for a shopping mall, but for a really unique experience. I send them out to maple sugar houses, and they really are on the mountain biking trails. It's just amazing the ways in which they are able to interact with Vermont. But they love coming and staying on our farm, eating Vermont foods, and really being a part of our community. This weekend, with the storm, all of our guests stayed right in the village of Rochester and had a fantastic time. And as they left yesterday morning, they told me they were definitely coming back because they really enjoyed being here in the middle of snow and wind. It didn't matter. And they weren't here to ski. They were here to just be part of our farm and our community. So we have a unique opportunity with that to be able to showcase really the best of Vermont. With that being said, my husband and I helped to found the White River Partnership back in the late 1990s. And I felt with that agriculture really needed to be sitting at the table for environmental stewardship. So then I worked with Paul Doughton, who hopefully will be able to show up there soon, to create the Connecticut River Watershed Farmers Alliance, because we felt strongly that farmers need to be leaders in the environmental stewardship field and to have a seat and to be able to come and talk to you folks about what are the opportunities as well as the challenges for agriculture in Vermont on our side of the mountains. So the group, it really extends from the northern border down to the southern border in Massachusetts. We have a farmer down there in Whitingham that's been on our board for a number of years, really taking in that whole eastern side of the state and talking about where are the opportunities that we can be proactive, really be leaders, but also be there to address the issues of climate change and all that. I really appreciate that Senator Hardy this morning talked to you about the Farm Security Fund. Having access to funds when we have environmental impacts is really important. So I really appreciate meeting you all. Please come visit my farm. I would love to have you come and see what we do. It would be great.
Thank you, Beth. Appreciate you very much.
Mary, do you want to go next?
Sure,
Or
happy
Walt?
to.
Yep, one of
I can jump
you or
in.
Walt.
Hi, folks. My name is Mary White. My husband and I are the 5th generation here on his family farm. We've been dairy farming here since 1899. We are currently milking in a tie stall facility. We milk around 125 milking head. And we have invested everything we had pretty much at the farm on building a new state-of-the-art robotic milking facility that will be up and running next month. We were grateful to receive some grant funding for that as well. But as a small farm, we've really, over the last 10 years, dove into our practices and really worked with the watershed when it comes to water quality. We are involved in all the programs possible. We utilize the Connecticut River Watershed rental of a no-till drew to do cover cropping on all our corn ground. So that's a great resource that this organization offers. We work with the Pay for Phosphorus program as well. That was a pilot project started, and I believe funding is ending for that in 2026. So would happy to provide any insight on that program and how it's going for small farms. We also worked with NRCS right before COVID in 2020 to install a manure pit on our farm. And that has greatly shifted our practices to be able to manage our water quality in terms of spreading liquid manure versus stacking in fields. Before we were having to spread manure every day due to not having that storage capacity. So now we're able to effectively apply nutrients in a better way for our farm management and as well for our fields to really give the nutrients to the fields when it needs it the most. So after we harvest hay, we're able to apply that manure versus just having to stagger it. So we were very involved as we can be in the watershed. Again, many of us wear a lot of hats. I also sit on the Farm Bureau board as well. So you'll see me frequently through there. But yeah, it's been a lot as a small farm to try to dive into some of these programs. And we're really grateful for the opportunity that this watershed group provides us and look forward to working with all of you.
Just a couple of questions, Mary. On your manure, are you injecting or are you top dressing?
Yeah, we're not injecting. We just spread liquid right directly on top of the field.
Yeah.
We have looked into injecting. From what I hear from custom harvesters, it's a lot to set up. So they're kind of hesitant on smaller farms because of that initial, they're going to set all this up and we only have, 100 acres to spread or 150 acres. So it's really going to be a costing for us, but it's something we are interested in and looking at. but it seems to be the biggest withhold right now for us.
In your parlor that your robotic milkers that you are doing, what's that going to do for you?
So it's really, that was a labor investment for us. It's just too much for my husband and I to manage right now. And the style milking we're doing, milking in a tie barn, just the local labor force has disappeared. So we really made the investment knowing that we are going to be able to be more energy efficient to increase milk production. We designed the barn around cow comfort. So we're looking for longevity from our cows. And really from a management side, it's going to save us several hours a day. Not that we're not going to be in the barn, but that'll allow us to do other management things, like focus on our breeding programs more and taking better care of our cattle, herd health, things like that.
Where did your funding come from?
Well, most of it from the bank, but we did receive a small grant from the New England Dairy Business Innovation Center for modernization.
So just a local lender?
Yes.
Yep. Well, cool.
Where do you ship to, Mary?
Cabot Agrimark.
Okay.
Yep. Well, thank you, Mary. Appreciate you coming in.
Is
Walt?
anybody else on the call?
Yeah, Walt Gladstone. Why don't
Good
you go
morning.
next?
Good morning. I assume you folks can hear me.
Yeah, we can hear you, Walt. Good to see you again.
Good morning, Senators. Thank you for the opportunity to chat with you briefly here this morning. I'm going to keep it short. We've met and talked somewhat in the past, but just to refresh your memories, my wife and I started Newmont Farm 36 years ago. We have 3 sons. 2 of our sons are in business with us. Our oldest son, Will, is an acting partner. He manages the dairy and the help in and around the barns. My youngest son, Matt, is heads up our field crew and cropping needs and taking care of equipment. My wife is the glue that holds us all together, and she does the books. We are currently milking cows on 2 sites here at our home farm. We're milking 1,800 cows, and we bought a neighboring farm from Paul Knox, which is a quarter of a mile away, and we're milking 500 cows there this morning. Our focus over the years has been on animal care, strong land stewardship practices, and a positive work environment. We're growing over 2,000 acres of corn here in the Connecticut River Valley, about 1,000 acres of grass. And as you guys know, we grow about 300 acres of pumpkins. I guess my main comments this morning are to reiterate having the opportunity to be at the table with you gentlemen and ladies while you're making decisions that sometimes have very, very impactful economic and emotional consequences to our farm. One of the issues that's in front of you folks these days has to do with the whole who's going to regulate us in regard to RAPs and large farm permits. And I can't sit here this morning and with a solid, I know the answer, this is what I think you guys should do. My concerns are that whatever you guys do and what you're looking at, for example, in New York State, those guys have permits that are similar or as high as CAFO, as I understand it, and the permit isn't necessarily just CAFO, and in that process, those guys have the ability to be up to speed, and if they're not currently right there where they need to be, there's a time for those practices to get implemented, and there's some coverage and protection against lawsuit and such. I don't have the answer, but one thing I feel fairly confident is if all of a sudden we on this island of Vermont decide we're going to have the walls to be successful so high, and the nutrient management plans are so much more restrictive, how we spread, all these different factors. if we just continue to become an economic disadvantage to our neighbors. You know, I mentioned the last time we spoke, I think that when and if there's different tax incentives that you can help promote business here in the state, whether it's agriculture or businesses, that's wonderful. Long-term impacts and promotes jobs. And last but not least, incentives that help with water quality, such as Mary mentioned, manure pits, cover crops. Those are all practices that we want to do, but with inflation and everything just becomes so expensive. There's only so much money to go around.
We spent some, just a question here. We spent some time this morning going over S60, an act relating to establishing the Farm Security Special Fund to provide grants for farms losses due to weather conditions. In your Connecticut River watershed, or even for you, how is your flooding problems, and were you able to obtain funds to help to mitigate any losses?
We have, and I appreciate that, and that's an important program. You know, we have, as you know, the first week of July, the last 2 seasons, we were flooded, and we did have as much as 300 to 400 acres of corn that saw water at some point. And we had our probably biggest year of hardship in regard to flooding with the pumpkins. That money through BGAP, I was talking to Lee King this morning, I think that's her name, over the ag department. She's helping us maneuver through that and get some funding. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Sounds good. We have some folks that have just come into the room. And anybody else on the screen that who else on the screen would like to just Jen?
Hi, thank you so much for the opportunity. My name is Jen Majessi. I was born on the flat side of the Greens in Middlebury. Then in 1998, I moved to Royalton and established Fat Rooster Farm. It's a small 75-acre farm that's diversified. I have veggies, fruits, sheep, chickens, and about 50 acres of hay land. I work for Vermont Organic Farmers, which is the certification arm of NOFA Vermont. I really enjoy working there and continuing to try and secure food security for all Vermonters, and also to support Vermont's small farms, particularly organic, but all small farms in Vermont. Thanks.
Thank you, Jen. Anybody else up on the screen? Did we get through all of you folks? I think so. Okay, well, we're gonna come around the room here.
Who's in the room with you?
Well, we're gonna find out. We're gonna start over here.
Is Mike Snow?
Sure.
Hi, Mike.
Mike Snow.
Would you go over there, please?
Yeah, I said just come right into the chair right here.
All right.
At the table, Mike.
Hey, everybody.
We're on the screen.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody at home. So first of all, apologize. Rookie move. We were waiting outside the Senate Ag.
Oh,
That's like 20 minutes.
that's no problem.
But glad that we had folks on Zoom. So my name is Mike Snow. I am the executive director of the Connecticut River Watershed Farmers Alliance. All members behind us. And also a farmer. I live in Post Mills in Orange County. And I raise chickens. I raise edible beans, vegetables, and small grains. I want to let our members talk to you most, but I want to explain who we are as an organization.
We'd like that.
Yeah, good. So Connecticut River Watershed Farmers Alliance, it's a mouthful. We formed in 2016. partly in response to big changes happening with required agricultural practices. And, the farmers in our watershed want to make sure that we represent ourselves, because farming in the Connecticut River Valley is quite a bit different than in Champlain Valley. But our mission, our prime mission, is to improve water quality and to help our farms, our member farmers, to do that. We're entirely farmer run. Our board, half of our board is here, and they're all active farmers. We farm on both sides of the river. Our watershed goes, our sort of our mandate is from the Canadian border. We have folks up in Pittsburgh, New Hampshire, which is about as far as you can go.
It is.
And down to the southern border with Massachusetts. So we're on both sides, and we're along the river. We represent at least 15,000 acres and many miles of waterfront, riverfront, both the Connecticut and the tributaries. And we're sort of in the low valleys and in the high hills areas. We work together to share information. We host workshops, on-farm events. We also share equipment. And I think in general, we try to support ourselves, not just in our water quality work, but also our farm viability and what it takes to be farmers now. And, the community has changed a lot, and it's important even just having social interactions, right? I mean, that's something we've all learned in the last 40 years. And that's has to do both with what it's like to be farming now and just in general. I mean, we all need that.
So we have, it seems to be the Champlain Valley is very intensive on eradicating phosphorus. Do you have the same, or we've heard on your side they're more concerned about nitrogen than they are phosphorus?
Yeah, that's great. So that's right. Our water body is different, right? Our waste goes down to the Long Island Sound. So in a sense, we don't have our issues aren't as in our face, right? But in general, nitrogen is thought to be more of an issue for us.
Yeah.
And it's worth saying that, we're a very different watershed in that our soils are different, our geography is different. We have a lot of advantages relative to other parts of the state, partly because of our highways and our accessibility, but also our soils are very different.
Right, you have that clay over there.
That's right.
Out in Chittenden County.
Yeah, and so the reason why we say that is because we do think that, as we talk about regulation and then even sort of the interactions of how we want to be farming, different pollutants act differently in our soils. And we sort of have different issues that we think about.
Sure. Well, good. Well, who else would you like to have come up?
How about Paul? He's also our board chair.
Great. Welcome, Paul.
I was spoken with you the other night, a couple weeks ago. I've seen you before, sir. Guilty. Saw you on television.
Yes,
Hockey.
Yeah.
We're both the same age, so I'm glad to see somebody. Just to clarify one thing you brought up about nitrogen.
Yeah.
They say that 0.4 to 0.5% of the nitrogen that's accumulated in the Connecticut River is attributed to a bulk of Massachusetts border.
Yeah.
Quite a lot more is down below, and I'm not throwing stones at them, but just so you'll understand.
Yep.
My name, like you said, my name is Paul Doughton, part of Doughton Farm LLC in Barnard. With my wife Sherry and our son Brian. We formed that in January of 2005, the year after our son graduated from high school. We have 105 animals and we're milking 55 to 60 animals. We buy 300 ton of already chopped corn from the Connecticut River Valley. Barnard is not in the same soil type as the Connecticut River Valley. we get 12 to 13 tons to the acre, where we think that's good, and they don't get 30 to 40 tons. So it took a long time to be chopping corn, and we thought it was a better deal to do that.
Yeah.
We also make about 1,200 wrap drum bales to feed those animals. Milk is 90% of our income. And then we do maple syrup, 3,200 tabs. I say we, but my son does that. Snow plowing, sweet corn, and some custom baling and bush hogging. My parents moved from Billings Farm in December of 1949 to the farm where we are. My maternal grandfather owned the property in the 20s, and then in the late 40s, he sold it to somebody outside the family, and they weren't able to pay for it, so my parents took over. I have 4 younger siblings, all of whom are not part of the farm, except I got a brother that we won't let go, but if he has to, we can have him help if he needs to. I graduated from UMass Amherst. I worked at a feed, seed, and fertilizer company for several years, and then I worked on a dairy farm in Massachusetts. But I finally, after everybody else matriculated through the farm, I came home in 1978. I've served on the Agrimark board since the mid-90s. I was also on the Vermont Dairy Herd Improvement Association board, Yankee Farm Credit Board before it became Farm Credit East. I am currently on the New England Dairy Milk Promotion Board. I have been on the National Milk Promotion Board. I did spend some time at home. Vermont Milk Commission, I'm on now. I was on the Vermont Victim Services Working Group. And in the town, I was on the Zoning Board of Adjustment, and it was quite obvious it was a zoning board of non-adjustment. I've been the town moderator for 30 years, and I'm also a justice of the peace. In those days, I was also on the school board, back when the school boards were really school boards and they weren't just regional groups. And in order for me to have done all this, I can't say enough about my family. Our son said in kindergarten he wanted to be a dairy farmer, and he still is there every day. He has a 7-year-old son and a 4-year-old granddaughter who live across the field. We get to see almost every day. I also should add, I have a 3-year-old granddaughter who lives in South Burlington. I would just finish that sentence with grandchildren to the best. We also have a community picnic once a year. We do it the weekend before Tunbridge Fair because we try to do on Tunbridge Fair. We wouldn't get anybody. Started that in the 60s with 20 to 25 people. That was the entire group. We've been doing it in the last 3 or 4 years. We've had between 75 and 100 people, and that's from the same area. So there's been quite a lot of change. Mike was quite diplomatic about, we formed the Corfa, we call it, Beth Kennett turned it that way, to bring attention to the fact that there is an eastern side of the state. And that we could use some water quality funding. And I'm happy to say that has seemed to help. It got to the point where I couldn't walk into a room without somebody saying, "Don't see, it must be he wants some more money." We've worked very closely with both the other watershed groups, and I've got along very well with them. And we do appreciate their help. And Heather Darby, who is with the extension, has been helping us. And we want to make sure that you know that, as Mike said, Corford includes both sides of the river. There is an advantage. I work as much as possible with Vermont Agency of Agriculture, NRCS, FSA, and the Conservation District. I think I've said all I need to say. Questions I'd be glad to answer.
I think we're good, Paul. Thank you very much. And thank you for your community service as well. It's always important. Who'd like to go next?
Oh, the next.
Yeah.
I look right. I'm looking at me tonight.
We're gonna wait for Senator.
No, he had to step back.
Okay.
So, yeah.
My name is Charlie Gray. Excuse me. My name is Charlie Gray. I'm the farm field manager at Oakhorns Farm in South Newbury, Vermont. I'm also the vice president of the Vermont Fruit and Vegetable Growers Association.
Nice.
I've been 10 years plus on the North American Strawberry Growers Association. So I visited farms. Like we do a summer tour and we do a winter conference. So I visited farms all over the United States, and has seen states and other farms in both the processes of we are now trying to control the water and the process of well, they've already started to control the water and realize that maybe there are some things along the way that they could have changed. And it's, I feel a privilege for you guys coming us, letting us come over and speak to you today and to understand that all other states have done this before us, and it's nice to be able to learn from that so that when we implement our own regulations and laws, we can do it right. So a little bit of background about farming. I've been farming for 10 years now. I'm the second generation. My parents started it in 78 in Heartland, Vermont. And in 82, they moved to Newbury, Vermont. We started with about one greenhouse and a couple acres of strawberries and a few other crops. And now 45 years later, we're now farming 60 acres. We're about 20, a little over 20 acres of actual tillable land. And then we're doing 20 acres of hay production, 20 acres pasture, and then cover crops. And then we're growing everything that's in our climate. So we're doing about 2.5 acres of hothouse tomatoes, along with about an acre of cucumbers, and then along with all the other cucurbits. So your summer squash, your zucchinis, your melons, your watermelons, and outside cucumbers, along with raspberries and blueberries. And then we do about potatoes and sweet corn. We make our own straw. So that's all contained within that 60 acres. And over the last, as I said, I started actually farming 10 years ago. Before that, I went to Montana State University for college. And before that, I did 4 years in the Marine Corps. So that was sort of my guide. I worked on the farm since I was young until high school. And then at high school, I went to the Marine Corps in college. And then I started 10 years farming. Now I'm at that, or I'm a little over 10 years now. I've really been growing for the last 5 years of, my own thoughts and hands in the ground growing. And this year was 24 was a little easier than 23. I mean, they were still extremely challenging and it was very hard to pull any money out of the ground. But this year was a little easier. 23 was a very hard year for us, as everybody remembers. I believe it was May 17th, we had the abnormal frost event that, swept through our state, and actually apple orchards and farms at higher elevations did better than us down in the valley. That was one of the coldest nights I have witnessed at the farm for the middle of May. We were 24 degrees and we were in full bloom on 8 acres of strawberries at that point. So between Delaware covering the plastic culture and using water to help irrigate on the Maduro style, it was a long night for all of us. And single events like that is why you love and you hate farming, because in that one moment, your jump to action saved the farm. If you had done anything different in that one night, we would have lost the whole crop for the year. And I know a lot of apple orchards that do overhead irrigate or wind or still have problems with losing their crops. So we understand that's sort of the gamble that we get into as farmers, is that the majority of the time, life's good and it's still hard work, but you can get through it. And then you're going to have events like that. Lucky for I feel for the farmers like Joe's Brook up in Peacham, and other farms in that area that really got devastated this summer, that, they have nothing their land got pretty much washed away and they have nothing to really go back to. So as living down in the valley, it's, I'm humbled that we don't have to deal with that, because in the 40s in the Connecticut River Valley, the Wilder Dam came to the farmers and they sold all the flood rights. So if you know that piece floods on a year-to-year basis, you really have no reason to plant in it, because whatever you plant there is probably going to get flooded. So a lot of it, we have about 15 acres of that we use mostly just as hay ground for alternative peats, but we don't till it anymore, because you could have a couple wet years in a row and never be able to get back into it. And then you have it's one of the easiest things to take a piece of ground from sod to soil. It's really hard to get that soil back to sod. And that's sort of what I've been teaching myself over the last few years of doing small plots and trials between other cover crops to figure out the best way to get that crop, so that it's not just, that needs to be sod, so just leave it alone and let whatever seeds that are there grow. It's not that simple, because since they came over on Mayflower, they've brought a lot of invasive plants to our state that I don't think a lot of people don't understand, that even the simple thing as a dandelion that you think is beautiful is actually an invasive plant that came over and is now everywhere. And at least on our side of the state, we're dealing with a thorn bush called multiflora rose that has, as these dairy farmers have gone out, has taken over these pastures. And it is something that have nightmares because it has, I don't know if people understand it's got a reverse barb. So like your normal thorn bush just has a barb. This has a reverse barb. So when you walk up beside it, it hooks and it's very hard to deal with. And that's something that this season we're going to try to mitigate in our pastures to try to keep them open because there's a lot of invasive crops.
How does the Alliance help your farm as far as and how do you work within the Alliance? What did you learn by working with the Alliance that helps you be a better farmer or does better water quality?
Just getting your cover crops on time in the fall, so that way there's not trying to keep the least amount of fallow ground seeded and not leaving it where that was the old practice that, as soon as you got your cow corn or sweet corn or any crop off, you just leave it and they'll be there for you in the spring. And trying to really move away from that and have ground that is, seeded with something, established seeding, something, going out in the middle of November and throwing seed on the ground and saying, oh, look, I seeded it and it germinated isn't the same as, end of September, 1st of October, getting that into a well-established winter rise. So that way, in 3 weeks down when the snow melts, all our fields should be green and not fallow.
Yeah.
Because the spring flooding is what really concerns me of your soil erosion, right? We have enough. Yes, all flooding is bad, but the spring flooding, because there's nothing growing, we have a 5-month growing season here in Vermont. From May to pretty much the end of September, that's when things grow. Outside of that window, there's not a lot of growing. So thinking that, you're anything that you left fallow in the fall, especially with these fall, as we've gotten later and later until we get our first snow in the valley or our first real like winter setup is what I call it. But I think this year it was New Year's. I was putting in posts for fencing and I was like, what is going on? I'm pounding in posts in the middle of the ground in New Year's when this should be frozen solid and it shouldn't be able to. So all that ground that is then left fallow now has multiple opportunities throughout the winter for erosion to just wash those nutrients away.
Where are your markets as far as with your fruits and stuff?
So we're 80% to retail. We sell mostly out of our farm stand, and then we do a few farmers markets this way to Montpelier and then off the Littleton. We try to cover a pretty good area between the two states.
Do you have enough product to sell, or you get it all sold?
Yes, we have between our retail and the wholesale, we have plenty. We could get a little bigger if we want to. It's just we have a big crunch on our require HUA labor to pick our crops, and those guys are amazing. They come back every year, but the policies and trying to get housing inspected is been really eating into our budgets, as long as, and also with the I'm going to butcher, but it's the adjusted wage survey or whatever that has been going on every year. So that's what's really killing us is, so we jumped $1 this year. Last year we were $17.80 an hour for minimum wage. This year we're $18.80. The year before that we were 16 and jumped to 17, another $1. And it was a COVID year that really killed us. We jumped $2. So we plan the farm of, okay, they said the H2A wage was going to freeze. We could adjust it. Okay, it's not going to go up this year. We'll adjust our crops on how much to grow. And then they were like, okay, the wage is going up $2. So on our scale farm, that is, it's quite a bit of money to say, okay, now what do we do? Do we grow more, which then trying to find land in the Connecticut River Valley is very, very hard? Or do we raise our prices, which then is only hurting the local communities, which are already scraping by, trying to put food on the table for their families? And it's like, the higher the prices go, as sad to say it is, the cheaper the food they try to buy. So then it's, it's this battle back and forth that we've been, and we're really just trying to reach out to the government to put a freeze on the H2A wage, at least for a couple of years, so we can adjust. I understand that people are going to make a living wage, but when it's every year, it's just keeps jumping and jumping and jumping. It's getting really hard to, so it's almost to the point where we can grow the food, we can manage the business, but I don't mean to use this word here, but the bureaucracy of the programs is killing small farms, not just ours, but across the state and the country. And I see it everywhere. It's, we're $18.80. I think California now is over $20 an hour for, it's like, I had this conversation the other day with someone of like, how much should an unskilled laborer cost, right? I can no longer hire kids to weed whack because I have to pay them the same as everybody on the farm. So that 14-year-old that really wants a job, I can't give him a job at minimum wage because I have to pay him $18 an hour, and he has no skills. I mean, he's a kid, but this is the perfect farms are the perfect jumping off point for anybody who wants a job. Because you don't really need to have any special skills, because I can teach you that, or I can put you in an area that will set you up for good work ethic and all of those like fundamentals that are crucial for building our youth. So it's that would be an awesome if that can clarify. If I can hire a young kid and say, hey, we have 3 acres of greenhouses that are all individual that need to get weed whacked around so the grass doesn't grow up in rotten plastic and wood. So it's like, and I want to be able to hire a local kid if the parents drop off for 3 or 4 hours every couple of days, and I feel like my hands are tied because if we do that, and we just went through a Department of Labor audit, both with the state and the federal government, and they go through every single record. And if that one kid were to be on the books and I were to have paid him a lower wage, we would then have to back pay him at whatever the minimum wage is for as long as he worked. And luckily we know that now, so that's sort of what keeps our hands tied of having to hire in any locals, because it's really hard. I want to hire locals as much as we can, and it's I especially come from Newbury, which is, I don't mean to say it, but our town is dying. It's like people don't really come to our side of the state very often, except for go to Groton in the summer, and it's hard to see that. It's so hard to see just that, and glad, and I appreciate you guys having us over here today. And
well, we appreciate you coming.
Time for someone else.
I think we have is it Guy that's here?
Yeah.
Hi, Guy.
Good morning.
Hi. Good morning.
My name's Guy Crosby. I come from Heartland. Contrary to your belief, I live on Clay Hill Farm. And so there is clay.
So there's a little clay over there. You found it.
I have a barn that is built right into a Clay Hill, blue clay.
Yeah.
I've been there. I moved to Vermont in '76. First to a horse farm in Woodstock, and then I moved to my current farm in '85. I've been there. I don't want to say it too many times but it's almost 40. It'll be 40 years this summer. I've been raising beef since the early '90s. Due to market forces out of my control, I now raise 2 cats. So I'm out of the beef business for the moment, but I've learned through the years that the quality of the beef all depends on the quality of the forage that you put to them. So what I discovered is that when I turned 73 years ago, I put up a 5-year plan in front where I didn't want to use the conventional commercial fertilizer, and I didn't want to use synthetic nitrogen as a fertilizer. So my fertilizer dealer recommended that I increase my clover crop and use a sulfate of potash to feed the clover. If you feed the clover, it'll fix the nitrogen that'll grow the grass.
Right.
So we're doing that. But the main reason that since I no longer have any beef right now at the moment, I've been focusing on a project that Mike Snow and Paul Dilton and another person, Andy McMillan, who was with the Agency of Agriculture for a long time, for 20 years. We're trying to set up sort of an insert. We're doing a pilot project to see if it's possible to recycle the bale wrap instead of putting it in the landfill. And the 50 farms that we've that have signed up so far, all of the farmers are adamant they are deadly, not deadly, but they hate putting the wrap into a landfill. So we have a recycling company based in Hazleton, Pennsylvania, that wants the wrap. They want the exclusive right to get our wrap. That we don't have a contract with them, but and all the farmers that have signed up, like I said, they don't want to put the wrap in the landfill. And the landfill operators the two that we've we've only made 2 bales now, where it's a little under 3,000 pounds. It's a tiny percentage of what goes into the landfill. But the landfill managers are excited about it because they would like to reduce the amount of plastic that goes into the landfill. So that's what we're trying to log on is a record of time and mileage and stuff to figure out the infrastructure of collection and storage is a big problem. Both storage of a loose wrap before it gets put into a bale and then storage of a bale before it gets shipped to Pennsylvania. So these are areas that.
How big's your farm?
95 acres.
Yep. How much is tillable? How much is tillable?
9,500. About 60.
Yeah.
And then I lease on both sides of my farm. There's about 160, 170 acres. And then I also work with a local dairy farm that they're in sort of succession planning right now. So I get, when we work back and forth, I let them rotate corn on some of my acreage. Like Charlie was saying, the big problem with invasives. So we have to, I don't want to use glyphosate on the land to be able to kill. So sometimes when they use atrazine to kill as a weed preventative for the corn crop, but other than that.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Do you have any questions?
Not a question, but so thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you for your service, Charlie. It's always great to hear a Marine in the building.
Thanks, sir.
And I can't tell you how great it is for me to be surrounded by farmers here today. We haven't had anybody from an administration or an agency in today. It's just great to be in the same room with farmers. Beth mentioned something that made me chuckle. I don't know anybody that's ever come up to Vermont, and I've been here since '68. Who the first time they visit a farm says, "Hey, where's the nearest mall anyway?" It just doesn't happen. I think that was a great statement. And Phil Emmons earlier really capped it off for me. At one point, this 180 member General Assembly had a greater majority of farmers. In fact, it probably at one point was 75, 80% farmers. And in my view, it would be nice if we could ever get back to that. We probably won't. We seem to be surrounded a lot by, lawyers and people that, no offense, that are employed by pushing paper around on a table and they're not out in the field. So whether you do dairy or maple or beef or field crops, you're always welcome here. And I'm hoping that we can, we talked about the security fund. I think it's something we're going to seriously consider. I don't know what the number is going to be in the end, if it's going to be 5 million, 10 million, or has been suggested maybe 20 million. It probably won't be 20. It always seems like this is a bad year to be asking for money. Well, when's it going to ever be a good year? But I think we'll get to some point this year where we can get that in the budget. And it'd be nice to be able to think that farmers could know that there's at least some backup for them to take care of the nasty weather that apparently is going to keep coming. So that's my 2 cents.
And of all things, that I'm most proud about this committee is how well they pay attention, but we are an ag committee. We're not a political committee, we're an ag committee. And we are, it is nice to have just farmers in today and talk about with really what this committee is meant to be. But I want to thank the Connecticut River Watershed Farmers Alliance for coming in. I want to thank you for all that you do. We expect, hopefully we'll see some of you back. We've seen some folks already. Walt's been in a few times already, and always Mary, always good to see you folks. We're here to serve you. Anytime that anything arises, let us know. If you think we're off track on something, let us know. Or if you think that we should be doing something different or paying attention to something, just let us know. We're here to serve you. And we want to thank you all for coming.
Thank you very much for having us. We really appreciate it. We really wanted to meet you and offer our services as a resource to you for any questions. As you can see, we have a really diverse group of farmers, and
Yep.
we have, experience in different areas. So we really would appreciate you considering us as a resource to you. So thank you so much for your time.
Well, thank you very much, Beth.